Domu Newtown rose out of the village of Domu like a sprouting weed, wild, fast, and strangely beautiful. It had street lights, painted gutters, and noisy bikes instead of quiet footpaths and village gong-gongs. Almost everything in the village changed. But even with all that change, the ancient Baobab tree still remained. It stood magnificently. 4 years earlier, they had built the first school in the settlement. Right next to the school stood the towering Baobab. It was a good school by prevailing standards, and that was where it all began. My name is Afia, and this is the story of the class prefect who wrote me love letters. His name was Nii Kwei. Everyone knew him. Smart, composed, and never late for school. The teachers liked him. The boys feared him. And we, the girls, we admired him from a distance and for various different reasons. He was the class prefect for JHS 2B, and somehow I ended up sitting right behind him in class. He seemed to shield me in class when a difficult question is asked because he would quickly raise up his hand and answer. It was an advantage I got for sitting behind him, but also an advantage he got to post letters without getting up from where he sat. It started with a folded paper slipped into my maths book. There was no name, just 9 words. Your smile is like Saturday breeze after Friday rain. It read. I stared at it for minutes. Was it from him? Why me? But I didn't tell anyone, not even Nii Kwei, my best friend, who was in JHS 2A. By this time, I have taken note of his handwriting as well as his act of putting short notes in my books. But then the note this time was different. It wasn't the usual academic-related questions or answers from the famous class prefect. I thought he was only smart. He didn't look like he could even think of such things. And it was clearly obvious that he had brains, but I didn't imagine that he had a heart also. The next day, there was another letter under my English book. I opened and read it. Behind a successful JHS 2B class prefect, there is a beautiful Afia. I couldn't help but blush. It was a beautiful day after all. Who would not want to be told something this nice? The day after that, there was yet another letter, and then another, and another. I began to really like my textbooks now, especially the maths textbook, because I am always likely to find some sweet words there from my class prefect. Nii Kwei never looked at me twice during lessons, but his letters kept coming. Sweet, awkward, and somewhat shy. He described my laughter, my scribbled notes, and even the way I neatly ironed out the pleats in my uniform. It became our secret, written in ink and folded edges. I began to look forward to his letters. And for that reason, I looked forward to school days. The weekends became too long to endure. And at school, I always left a book on my desk, hoping to receive a letter from him. He also did same, but we never spoke. The rules of the school frowned at romantic relationships among minors and pupils for that matter. And it frowned most especially at prefects, since they were supposed to set good example for others. And so, we hardly ever spoke directly. One afternoon, It rained, not a usual drizzle, a real Domu rain, thunder, flooded gutters, soaked uniforms and all. And we were trapped at school for longer than usual. After the rain stopped, I sat under the baobab clutching my school bag while waiting for Nii Kwei so we could walk home together. He came and sat beside me. We didn't speak for minutes. Then he handed me a letter, soaked, smudged, and shaken in his hands. It was the first time he directly handed the letter to me, although we had exchanged many others. I still remember the words in that letter, as if it was just yesterday. It read, "Although it rained today, I still had sunshine in you. You carry warmth in your presence, Afia." I smiled quietly. He turned and left when he saw Nii Kwei coming. "I hope he didn't add your name to the list of talkatives in class today," Nii Kwei said as he saw him walking away. "No, he did not," I answered as we started walking home. "Better," she said, "like the way I would deal with him. I still haven't forgotten how he wrote my name and I was caned last term." About a week later, news broke out in the school that one of the JHS 3 girls has been found pregnant and had to drop out of school. A general assembly of all pupils was called, and we were cautioned and also advised to focus on our studies. Another assembly was called for only the girls, where the teachers had a lengthy talk with us. Amidst the extra sermons at school worship service and the additional surveillance and words of caution by the teachers, the letters stopped coming for a few days. And then he broke the silence with yet another letter. "I like the quiet you bring, Afia. I like you." Oh, how my heart wanted to scream, "I like you too." But I couldn't. And then we started to exchange letters again, trying our best to be as vigilant as we could. But of course, secrets never stay hidden in Domu. Even the air seems to speak, just like the drums. A classmate found one of the letters. Then came the whispers, the teasing, the warnings, and soon it was an open secret. "He is a prefect. You want to spoil his future. Girls your age should focus on their books, not boys," some people said. I tried to focus on my books, but then the books brought me the letters each time. Everyone knew that Nii Kwei was an intelligent boy. Teachers, pupils, but then they didn't know about his ways with words and how that his intelligence goes beyond his textbook and finds its way into my own textbooks in the form of letters. He seemed to always have a letter readily available for every situation. We were reported to our class teacher one hot afternoon by Kofi, who had been monitoring Nii Kwei for some time. Nii Kwei got summoned, and I was told to wash the teachers' latrines for a week, while Nii Kwei was made to weed all around the school canteen. The letters stopped again. Just 1 week after completing the punishment, I received another letter, neatly folded paper, with equally neat and beautiful handwriting, reading, "Forgive me for putting you through so much trouble, my Afia. I promise to do better now, to undo the punishment they punished you." I thought what he meant was to stop writing to me in order to avoid getting us punished. Oh, how wrong I was. On the contrary, I now received at least 2 letters every day. He even now convinced Nii Kwei to sometimes bring me letters. At times, The letters requested that we meet at the junction or the stream after school, and those were the only times we ever had a direct conversation. Once again, a letter was stolen from my book before I returned from break. Unknown to us, one of the boys had been monitoring Nii Kwei for some time and had taken the letter after it was placed inside my book and given it to the teacher. We were reported to the assistant headmaster. Mr. Yanka, the assistant headmaster, was a very stern disciplinarian, and I was scared when we were summoned to his office. Nii Kwei's post as class prefect was taken from him that day, as it was deemed that he was not a good example for other pupils. He was also moved to the A class in order to put us in separate classrooms. Well, he didn't appear to be very disturbed about the loss of his post, but the letters stopped again. Weeks passed. Then one early, gloomy, and dull morning, I found one letter under my desk. No name, no poem, but it was hopeful, and it lifted up my spirits that dull morning. But little did I know that was going to be the very last of his letters. It was just one sentence, and it said, "Even if they silence my hand, my heart still speaks, Afia." It was as if the weather that morning understood that it was actually a goodbye note, even though it sounded like a fresh start. I was glad after reading the letter to know that he wasn't going to give up on us. I never replied. I couldn't reply. Nii Kwei was transferred after the exam. His parents moved him to a different school by sending him to live with other relatives away from Domu. No goodbye, no promises, and no letters. I couldn't contact him and had no idea where he was moved to. There were no telephones and no phone numbers. Then I also moved to the boarding house after completing JHS and then out of Domu. Years later, I returned to Domu Newtown. The school had grown and now has more blocks, a gate, and even a computer lab, but the Baobab still stood tall and magnificent. I touched the trunk and remembered everything: the silence, the rain, and the letters. And even though I never saw Nii Kwei again, every breeze near the tree still whispers of a boy who once loved me with his words.